And jurors in Delaware are deliberating if President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, is guilty of illegally buying and possessing a gun while on drugs. Now, Biden's defense argued that he did not knowingly violate the law because he may have thought that he was clean at the time he purchased the weapon. It comes less than 2 weeks after his father's chief rival for the presidency, Donald Trump, was found guilty by a New York jury of 34 counts of falsifying business records late last month. Now, for more, we're joined by Bloomberg's D.C. Bureau Chief Peggy Collins. Peggy, this is such a treat to have you in London. I know then you're making your way to the G7, but you say the election campaign has started in a new phase. Why do you say this?
Well, I think it's for two reasons, Francine. One is the fact that while Trump was going through the trial for weeks in New York, he had to actually be in the courtroom at least 3 days a week. So he was constricted in terms of how much he could campaign around the country. And we saw this weekend that as soon as the trial wrapped and he was convicted, he was out on the campaign trail again to Las Vegas, Nevada, one of the most competitive states that we have in this election. The other reason is cash. So one of the things that Biden has had an advantage on for most of this year is campaign fundraising and cash. At one point, he was more than double in terms of Trump, in terms of cash haul, over $100 million raised. But Trump, after the days of the trial verdict, raised $50 million and has continued to raise some cash over the past week or so. So that gap is closing in terms of an advantage between Trump and Biden.
So, Peggy, is this Wall Street cash? Is this big donors like Steve Schwartzman that, finally put his weight behind Donald Trump? Or is this, mom and pops kind of believing in Donald Trump as a candidate?
It's both. They've been able to raise quickly from grassroots donors online. And then, as you said, Francine, we've seen some very big donors start to turn towards Trump in just the last few weeks, including on Wall Street.
So do the voters care about these trials?
They do. They do. One of the things that we've been reporting after Trump's conviction is that it could have an effect on that very slim number of people who are really independents in the middle in terms of they haven't decided yet. There are obviously a lot of independent voters in the states, but there are many voters who have already decided on one side or the other. And the conviction for Trump could have an effect on those voters. And on the Hunter Biden trial, we are expecting that a verdict could come as soon as today. The jury is deliberating, as you said. That obviously isn't President Biden himself, but it certainly is in the media and has been a touch point for some of Trump's base.
So for Donald Trump, is there, for example, females between a certain age group that are more likely not to vote for him because of the trial, or is it impossible to break down?
I think it's difficult to break down, but I will say that the women vote for Trump has been one of the big question marks of this entire election year. That is in part because of reproductive rights and abortion rulings, and because in some of the most competitive states, like Florida, like Arizona, like Nevada, there's the potential for a ballot measure to be on Election Day related to abortion. And some of the Democrats feel like that may actually increase turnout, particularly among women, and hurt Trump potentially.
Peggy, if the vote were tomorrow, who would win?
Well, I don't know, again, because we're not in the minds of every American voter. But in terms of our polling, we've had a swing state poll since last year at Bloomberg. And what it's continually showed is that the race is won very close in the 7 most competitive states, but that Trump is leading in most of the swing states as of today, as of our latest polling in May.